Welcome everybody to the first contact. So whoever thought we are going to do some Star Trek, I have to disappoint you. I'm going to talk about this first contact. Who of you has seen registration forms like that? Yes. Have you enjoyed these forms? Oh yeah, one person actually enjoyed it. Awesome, very good. Yeah, why the first contact? Why is this the first contact? Well, actually your registration form or your order form is the first real impression a website user gets from your company. Before that, everything is just advertisement. You're just telling them, we are so cool, but in the registration form, you show your real face. Who am I? I'm a software developer at a German company, bitExpert. I'm organizer of a PHP-Usergroup. I do some open source stuff. And I have to give you a disclaimer. This is a rant. This is 9 points that I personally despise in every registration form. I'm not a UI person. I'm not a UX person. So always question whether what I'm saying is actually the right thing. I'm not a lawyer. I'm going to show you some things that you definitely should talk to your lawyer before you're actually implementing them. I'm just a user like you are. I'm just telling you my experiences. And it's that easy to get into public speaking. So if you want to go into public speaking, talk to me afterwards. It's not that complicated. Yes, alumni of high school of street knowledge and common sense. So, I give you a few examples of registration forms. Who of you has not seen this form? I guess that. Is that a good form? Is that a good registration form? Come in. Am I not? Okay. Is that a good registration form or not? What would you say? Yes, it's pretty good. 4 stars out of how many? What about this one? Also, not bad. What about this one? Gets worse? It actually gets worse, yes, and I'll tell you later why. And I even have a worst case. What about this one? Yes! Okay, so let's have a look what these forms, these bad examples, have in common. And the first part always for me is names. I could fill a complete talk just talking about names, but I'm not going to do that today. Just a short recap. If we want to, or if someone tells us, ask a user for a name, we usually come up with something like that. 2 form fields, a given name, and a family name. In my case, that is pretty easy. My given name is Andreas, and my family name is Heigl. I better type it in, because when I tell it someone, most people get it wrong. What about this person? Professor Dr. H.C. Meinrad Wolfgang Fürst zu Erbach-Fürstenau. That is a rather common German name. All of it. All of it. And that is actually what is, at least in parts, written on the ID card. So what do you fit where? Professor Dr. H.C. It's a title. It's part of the name, but we're not asking for a title. Okay, so the given name is, well, that person has 2 given names, Meinrad and Wolfgang. Yeah, okay, we can fit both in. Fürst zu Erbach-Fürstenau. It's, well, actually the last name is, or the family name is Erbach-Fürstenau, because Fürst is a title, like king or prince or whatever. So with this form, we ask the person to butcher their name to just fit it in there. Not really nice. And what about this person? Who of you knows that person? That's from a Monty Python sketch. If you now say, well, that's rather exaggerating the whole thing because of the length of the last name, it actually is not. The longest ever recorded human name is this one. I actually had to reduce the font size to fit it on the screen. Yes, very important, senior. These are 988 characters. So who of you is storing names in a varchar 255? Realize something? I know this is a very bad example, but perhaps you should think about that. So, okay, let's not use the first name and the last, let's not use given name. Oh no, if we have given name and family name, what about this person? Björk Guðmundsdóttir. Who knows that person? The Icelandic singer Björk. Her given name is Björk, that's easy. But she doesn't have a family name, actually. Because Guðmundsdóttir means the daughter of Guðmund. So it's a father's name. In Iceland, they don't have family names. They only have father's names. So Björk's children, for example, are named, or can be named, Björksdóttir or Björksson. So that's not a family name. Or what about this one, Isa bin Osman? This is Isa, the son of Osman. A very typical name in the Arabic area. And I mean, that's not like Iceland, just about 300,000 people, that's much more. So there is no family name in this case as well. Okay, then let's change that. Use the first name and the last name instead. That's easier, isn't it? Is it? I actually have to look up into my notes because I always forget something. This is Abu, the father of Karim, Mohammed, the beautiful, the son of Nidal, the son of Abdulaziz, the Palestinian. This is the name of this person. So what's the first name and what's the last name? Exactly, we don't know. Or this one, Madurai Mani Iyer. This is a version of an Indian name. In this case, the person is named Mani. She's of the caste Iyer, religious caste, and she's from the village Madurai. Oops. Okay, and we have three names. So which one is the first one and which one is the last one? And what about this one? This is Mao Zedong. That's just because I know it, I can't read that. There is no space in that name, for one thing. So even if you want to apply some magic in realizing which is the first name, which is the last name by separating by spaces, forget it. And the first name, Mao, is actually the family name. And the last name, Dong, is actually the given name of the person. And Ze is the so-called generation name. So all the brothers and sisters of Mao Zedong are all called Mao Ze something. So how do you fit that in here? Well, I don't know. So always remember there might be no family name. There might also be no middle initial. I'm looking at those Americans. But the main thing is, actually, do I need to know how the name is split up? What do I need to know that for? Is there a reason? Yes, marketing, sure. But why do they need that? So why not instead just use one field, your name, and then the person can enter whatever they like. That's much easier. As long as you don't need to know how to split up the name. And also be prepared for very long input or just single characters. And also non-ASCII. But yesterday we had a talk on Unicode, so we all know how to handle that. No problem. If you need a transcription field for the name, or if you need a transcription of the name, use a field for that. Just like, okay, here you can put in whatever you want to be called, or whatever your name is in whatever script it is. And here, please provide us an ASCII transcription. Sometimes that's necessary. If you want to use, or if you need to use multiple fields, sometimes that's the case. Then clearly label what you want, or what you expect in these fields. Like flight companies, for example, they need a first and a second name because they need to validate that with a passport. So then provide the exact information. Please fill in here your last name as it is given in your passport. That's much easier to validate, and the person now knows, oh, wait a minute, where's my passport? Okay, that's what I have to type in here. And also, please have in mind, not only women are changing their name when they are marrying, there might be men or perhaps after a divorce, they take on their former name. So use something like previous name instead of maiden name. Think about what you're labeling here. That's a nice rant, but I'm not the only person thinking that way. There are some other people thinking like that. There just recently was a Twitter thread going through with a lot of these stuffs, but also the World Wide Web Consortium has a nice page on that. So if you want to read up on names especially, go ahead, have fun. By the way, I'm posting the slides later on, so you don't need to write down the URLs. The next thing that we often have in such forms is gender. Well, gender, male, female, and then, for one thing, please have in mind, gender is not binary. Gender is not sex, and I'm not going into much more detail here in this place. Happy to discuss that later on, but please have in mind, there are more than two genders. But for a registration form, the question is, do you need it? Do you need that to provide your service? When someone is ordering whatever food, why do you need to know that's a male or a female person or whatever person? And if you want that filled in, what do you need that for? Is it to address someone? So why not just ask for pronouns? Please give me a pronoun for you, how we shall address you. Or even easier, just give me a field. How do you want to be addressed? Like in an email newsletter. And I bet with you, if you provide this and someone types in Superman, they're pretty delighted every time they get your newsletter, hello Superman. And guess what? They will read it. Also, there are some resources falsehoods programmers believe about gender. Awesome, great read. And also the World Wide Web Consortium has something to say on that. Okay, so we have gender and we have names. The next thing usually that comes is email. Email. Notice something here? I'm required to enter my email address twice. But when I really realized that, I think the password only has to be entered once. What the hell? Do they think I'm stupid? Do they really think that I can't read what I'm writing when I actually see the characters? I mean, there is no need to enter your email address twice. Or do you require people to actually enter their physical address twice when you're sending something to them, just to make sure it's the right address? I mean, especially with email, when someone enters their email address to something, you will send an opt-in email anyhow. You will send a verification email. So you know, yes, that email is valid. Okay, so people will notice. But what happens when they actually enter the wrong email address? Allow them to change the email address during the registration process. That's complicated, you say? Yes, that might be. But it's possible. These guys, for example, made that. I was really delighted when I've seen that. It was like, yeah, okay, I need to register for something. Okay, so I enter my email address. And there you said, we sent your registration stuff to this email address. And then you have the chance to say, oh, damn, typo. Happens to the best of us, doesn't it? Okay, change the email address. Awesome. They didn't expect you to fail in the first place. They don't expect you're stupid in the first place, but they realized you might have been stupid. So here you have the possibility to correct your mistake. That's nice. I really like that. And please, whatever you do, as soon as email is involved, you know that you've carefully crafted your notice to the support team, and you hit the send button, and the support team gets your email or your information, and they get back to you 3 weeks later, and you're sitting there, what did I write them? Because of course, your stuff is not sent to you, and it's not in the email from the support team. So please, always send a copy to the user. There is a thread on Stack Exchange for stuff like that. Okay, then very often I have to enter dates in forms, in registration forms. How do you enter dates? Do we have any Americans here? Okay, so you all know how to format a date, year, month, day, because otherwise it doesn't make sense. But please, make sure to tell me how you expect that date. Please give me the date. And I want it as DDMMYYYY. So first the day, then the month, then the year. Or the other way around, or whatever way you want it. But tell me. Or even better, use the input type date, which gives you a date picker, which is rather easy. And if you have to support older browsers, by now that would mean like IE6 or something like that, use a date shim that just replaces that internally with a JavaScript date picker. And please, 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 validate dates fault tolerant. Because you're saying I want the date DDMM doesn't make my 1.5. Whatever invalid. Just because I skipped the zeros. Because you are expecting 01.05. Whatever. I've seen that so often in registration forms that I was like, why? It's not that complicated to realize, oh, there is a zero missing. Yes, I can validate that still. But the more important for me always is, what do I need a date for in a registration form? In an order form? Is that, please provide us your preferred shipment date? I mean, that would be awesome. But usually, it's for a birth date. What do you need my birth date for? Just to send me stuff? Is that for an age verification? Well, if you need an age verification, then use an age verification service. There are a lot of age verification services around. They can use your passport, your ID, your bank account. Like in Germany, we have Postident thing where you actually get something shipped, and then the postman validates your ID card, and you only get the item handed when you're of age. Or why not just a checkbox? I'm legally entitled to buy beer or whatever you want. Saves you two things. One thing, you don't need to calculate from a date. The second thing is you don't need to know what age in this country is entitled to buy beer. That is rather weird. And as I said, I'm not a lawyer, so you should definitely consult your lawyer. But on the other hand, before you hit the send button, there is this little small checkbox. Yes, I've read the terms and conditions. Who of you has read the terms and conditions before they checking that checkbox? Some of you have, most of you haven't. I don't read them either. So if that's valid, why shouldn't that be valid? And that's rather easy. And you don't need to calculate anything. And everything that you don't have, you can't lose. There are some references for that as well. Which brings me to the next thing, because it's even worse when this birthday field in your registration form is a required field. Because what is a required field? A required field notes things that you definitely need to provide the service. So you need my birthday definitely to provide me the service of shipping food to me. I can't understand that. But okay, if you think so. And please clearly mark required fields. I have seen that far too often, that you have a nice form, but you don't know which fields you have to fill in. Whether you mark the required fields or whether you mark the optional fields is up to you. But tell me which fields need to be filled in and which fields are optional. One of the references for that especially is GDPR. We all know about that. It's about a year old now. And legal regulations. There are some things you need to know. The birth date for sending some stuff definitely doesn't belong to that. Gender usually also not. So, and then that brings me to the next one, error messages. There are required fields and there are non-required fields. So when I miss filling out a required field, I get an error message. An error message tells me what went wrong and what I can do to fix it. So wouldn't it be helpful if that information would be exactly where I can fix it? So instead of doing something like this, this is the call for papers form for another conference that I submitted to, and I filled out the information. And if you have a closer look onto it, you will realize there are no required fields marked. Okay, so it doesn't matter what I fill in, what I don't fill in. So I filled in all the things that I felt should be in there and hit send. This was the result. Okay, for one thing, I barely couldn't read what was written on there. I see you can't barely read it. So let me have a look whether I can read it here. Error, your short description is missing. Okay, so my short description is missing, so I have to fill in the short description. Where is the short description? So now I have to look through the whole form again until I realize, oh yeah, there is the short description. Okay, so I fill in the short description and I hit enter or submit my talk. What do you think happens? This happened. No, please. Okay, so what is it this time? Error, please fill in text field. Okay, so there are also some tags that I need to fill in. They are up here. Okay, so I filled in the tags and hit submit my talk again, and then it actually went through. So I was happy. The fields are not clearly labeled, which led to the error in the first case. And then I had problems in reading the error message, but then I also had to figure out where actually can I fix that. So instead of telling me where the error happened and marking that with a red border or whatever, I have to figure out what's going on. So, and also please present all the errors at once, because nothing is more disturbing than filling out the error, hitting submit. Oh, there is another one. Okay, changing that error, fixing that error, hitting submit. Oh, there is another error, fixing that, hitting submit. After the 5th time, your user doesn't want to order anything from your shop. So he goes away and looks for someone else to look. And please present error messages where they can be changed. It makes it so much easier for the user. And that's what all of this is about. And please present end-user compatible error messages, like the entered value does not match the regular expression /whatnot at whatnot / blah. That is technically completely correct. I'm with you there. But I barely understand what's going on, and most of the users probably will just think, what the hell, I'm going somewhere else. So please present actionable user error messages, like your email address didn't validate. Please fill in a valid email address. That is perhaps not the best example, because validating email addresses is a completely different topic and also its own talk, but you know what I mean. And I found actually something on error messages that is 10 years old, or more than 10 years old, that was actually describing exactly the same things. The same things that I'm seeing everywhere over the web. So it looks like we haven't learned anything for the last 10 years. And I'm guilty of that as well. So, and then when we are registering for something, we need something that is called a password. Yes. Try to avoid passwords for different reasons. One of them, if you don't have them, you can't lose them. And losing passwords is usually not combined with good publicity. So I always try to use external sources for passwords or for login mechanisms, like OAuth or SAML or LDAP or Kerberos or whatever. If you use OAuth, for example, use different providers. Not everyone is using Facebook. Not everyone is using Twitter. Not everyone is using GitHub. Depends on what your customers or what your target audience actually is using. And if you have to store passwords, if you see, no, we actually have to store the passwords, do not roll your own crypto. There is a password hashing API built into PHP that is very easy to use. Please use it, and please always hash the password. Passwords are not stored in clear text, period. But that is not all. If you have hashed them, have stored them in a hashed form, you can still leak clear text passwords. Because during the login process, the password is entered into the form field, sent. You're not seeing that, but it's still in there in clear text. You're sending that in clear text over an encrypted channel to your server. It hits your server's API in clear text. So it enters your scripts in clear text until you're verifying that. So try to find a way of handing that password over to something, to a value object or whatever, that as soon as possible hides that from everything else. Because if you're on that way to your password checking mechanism and you have an error happening, it might happen that the password, as it is still in clear text, will appear in your log files unencrypted in clear text. That is something that can happen. That happened to Twitter for some years, and to Facebook, and to GitHub. So if it happens to you, you're in good company. Still not good publicity, if that gets public knowledge. So try to find a way how to avoid leaking passwords in clear text. Yes, and then if people have to enter a password, don't force anything on the password apart from a minimum length. That might sound weird for now, but I give you some information about that. You should also show some information about the password quality. There are some JavaScript libraries that can actually give you a kind of a red to green indicator whether you are using a good password or a bad password, or not that good password. Encourage users to use passphrases. What is a passphrase? A password usually is like very short, very complicated. Passphrase is something that you can easily remember, but it's much longer. But when you can remember it easily, that might be the better choice. And please also allow users to use a password manager. So they don't have to bother about passwords. They just fill in something from the password manager that stores that internally, and you don't have to worry about it at all. And if that password gets leaked, you're lucky because it's not the password you're using everywhere. It's just the password for that one website, so you can just change it there and you're good. And also never limit the password length. Because if you limit the password length, like password must be between 8 and 16 characters. Oh, you're storing that in varchar 16 unencrypted? Thank you very much. I'm going somewhere else. Because there is no need to do that. Because you're hashing the password anyway, aren't you? So if you're hashing the password length is fixed anyhow, no matter how many characters you're using. And in MD5, for example, you get 32 characters, no matter whether you have 1 character password or a 2,000 character password. It's always 32 characters. And in SHA-1, it's a bit more, and in whatever we are using in the password hashing API, it might be a bit more, but it doesn't matter. And also ditch the required password reset every X whatever months, because I'm buying something now. I might buy something in half a year's time. I don't want a reminder, please change your password in 3 weeks' time. That doesn't make sense. Well, it might make sense depending on what application you're building, because not everything is a web shop or something like that. But please do not use that. And it's not me saying that. That's someone called the National Institute of Standards and Technology, I think, that said that. Who of you knows that institute? Okay. That is the the governmental body that advises the NHS on security issues. So they know what they're talking about. Because what happens when you have a required password reset every X months, weeks, days, whatever, is, well, your password ends up on a post-it on your monitor. That doesn't make it more secure. So if you skip that, but allow passphrases, passwords that the people can remember much more easily, that's much easier and much more secure. Because this is the difference between a password and a passphrase. The upper one might look rather complex. It's very complicated to remember. But it's very easy to guess, actually, because it's just 8 characters long. The lower one, correct horse battery staple, it's a passphrase. But due to its sheer length, it takes much longer to guess that password and to compute that in a brute force attack. But most of you already have memorized it. So that's cool. So you probably shouldn't use that password, but something like that. And it really is so much easier to remember such a phrase than this. Where did I have to put the 4 in Troubadour? Yeah. So there are some resources. National Institute of Standards and Technology, the National Cybersecurity Center is the same thing that advises the GCHQ. They have something to say on passwords. Have a look at that. Awesome stuff. Also, have I been pawned? Who of you knows have I been pawned? Okay. So there are actually packages that you can include to in the password creation process to tell people you probably shouldn't use that password because that is already in the have I been pawned database. Right while they are entering it, which is pretty cool. Brings me to the next one, copy and paste.
Sorry, a question about that?
Yeah.
It checks the password you entered against all passwords ever
Yes.
entered in.
Yes. Yes.
But there's a chance that there's going to be a hit there.
Yes.
A pretty good chance.
Yes. So you shouldn't use the password. Realize something? Let's discuss that later because I have some stuff to go through. And then I'm happy to discuss that. Because copy and paste is another thing that comes right into play with the password thing because when I use my password manager, it uses copy and paste to put the password into that field. So please, thou shalt not disable copy and paste. Some people do that. Yes, please type in your password here. No, I want to use my password manager because I don't remember my password and I don't want to put in a 36-character cryptic string, whatever. No. So, especially on password fields, because I want to use my password manager. Makes sense. Also, the National Cybersecurity Center has written a whole blog post on that. Awesome read. Security questions? It's the same thing, actually. Try to avoid them. Because what are security questions? Well, do you really need them? Or, if you need them, don't use predefined questions. Make up your own set of questions. Because what happens is, on Facebook and Twitter and wherever, you always have these things like, what was the first car you learned stick shift driving on? One of those usual password recovery questions is, what was your first car? Or things like that. What was your first pet and what was its name? What is one of these usual password requirements questions? What was the name of your first pet? Thank you very much for your cooperation. So security questions are a backup password, which is easier to remember than the password. So make the password easy to remember and you don't need security questions. Easy as that. There is also a nice blog post on that. Okay, CAPTCHAs. Oh, sad that that doesn't work, but that robot actually solves the CAPTCHA. When I have to solve a CAPTCHA, a reCAPTCHA, like which of these pictures has a traffic light on it? That means when I can distinguish a traffic light from something else, I'm a human being. What does that make with a Tesla? Is that also a human being? Because they should be able to distinguish traffic lights from something else. So that is a bit weird, is it? And CAPTCHAs are ugly. They destroy your UI. especially reCAPTCHA. They are hard to read if you have some nice graphic captchas, and they discriminate users with disabilities. Or you have the possibility to download a sound file, which you can then send to Google's speech recognition and get the result back, enter that into the field, and automate the whole process. Awesome. There is a library for that, so you don't have to program that yourself. And they also use the user as workforce for training for something. So it's like somehow exploiting everyone. It's not that nice. But okay, we need that because we need to find out which ones are bots. So what are the alternatives? Who of you has heard of a honeypot? Okay, a honeypot, for those that haven't heard of it, a honeypot is a field that you put in your form and that you hide from the user's view and that needs to be empty. So a bot that comes to your site realizes, oh, there is a form field. Oh, that is called postal code. I for sure need to put something in there. And sends it up to your server, and your server then realizes, wait a minute, that is a honeypot field, something is in there. Yeah, for sure. So by that filter, it filters out all the bots. Yes, there are flaws with that. I'm happy to discuss that later. But that is a nice thing that doesn't require any user interaction and verifies whether you're a user or a bot. Or math captcha. Easy math question, like what is 3 plus 4? That should, almost everyone should be able to solve that. But it requires the computer or a bot to actually read some stuff from the UI and figure out what the actual question is so that they can add something to it. Or use a CSRF token. So the bot actually has to load the page, the form page, before they can actually send the page. Which means they have to do much more work than before. Which then means, okay, we're probably not using that. Or use for authentication, two-factor authentication. That's the library I was talking about with solving Google reCAPTCHA with Google speech recognition. Awesome thing. Yes, and then I have some additional resources if you want to have a look. Awesome falsehoods for programmers, a whole bunch of resources with falsehoods, programmer belief. Awesome read. If you want to have fun, do that. Well, are there any questions? I'm 1 minute over, so I'm happy to chat with you later in the hallway after lunch. Thank you very much.